What's up everybody, and thank you for joining me for another video. My name is Whack4863, but you can call me Whack. In today's video, I'm going to go through the patch notes here for update 2.6 that recently came to Conan Exiles. Now, I'm not going to cover everything that's in these patch notes. If you want to read it all, there's a link to them in the description of this video. However, I am going to pull out my highlights and let you guys know about those because I feel like these are the most important things that you need to know from these patch notes. The first thing that we're going to cover is right under here under performance and stability, and it's this guy right here. Addressed an issue with the decay system that would compromise server stability when large buildings decayed. This is really good so that the server doesn't lag or crash when a large base is popcorned and you take their loot. Under exploit fixes, we're just going to cover a couple of these things. Fix a number of exploits in regards to the building system, crafting, undermesh, and player identity. I think these are things that happen on a regular basis as new and more exploits are discovered. They kind of go in and adjust and tweak that to give players the best possible experience and to rectify the undermesh kind of things and different exploits that really happen on PvP servers. Fixed an issue in regards to server transfers. This is the issue that actually caused server transfers to be paused. Those were unpaused with update 2.6, but it sounds like there was some issues with the unpause, so you may not be able to server transfer as of the making of this video. New additions, we have the new DLC that's come to Conan Exiles. That's the People of the Dragon, or it's also known as the Numidian DLC. If you're looking for those items in the admin panel, the building items are under Numidian, so that should help you find those building pieces. And if you want a full video, full review of the DLC, go ahead and leave me a comment in the comment section below and whack that like button, and I'll see about putting a review together for that DLC. Argosian pillars should no longer block the top of connected stairs. This is a good fix for those of you that are builders or those of you that just use the Argosian pillars in your build. Crafting fixes, they fixed an issue where it was possible to consume weapon schematics even if you already had the feat unlocked. This is good because then you know when you try to use it that you've already used it and you can use that weapon schematic to trade with friends instead. Under combat fixes, it is now possible to break the healing wraps animation by moving your character, so you'll want to be careful. If you're not trying to break that animation, you don't want to move your character at all. However, if you do want to break it, it is possible to do that by moving. Fixed an issue that caused NPCs to be immune to hit stuns too frequently. I know I went up against the judge recently, and it was like I could not stun lock him at all. And actually, this next little section talks about the stun lock as well. Increase the duration of time an NPC can be consecutively stunned by hits to allow full combos from slower weapons. So this is good. This continues to need to be tweaked to find that sweet spot, I think. I went up against a judge. I had a very difficult time getting him to stun at all, let alone stun lock. So I think they really need to pay attention to this and continue to work until that stun lock is more balanced to a challenging but fun experience across the exiled lands and the Isle of Sipta. AI and thrall fixes. So the first thing here, mounts should no longer struggle to get out of bodies of water. I really didn't have an issue with this, but there were a lot of reports where people were having a hard time getting their mounts out of bodies of water. So this is a good fix. Fixed an issue that would prevent thralls from unequipping weapons at the end of combat. That's cool. Orb throwing NPCs should no longer engage players at melee range, defeating the purpose of angrily throwing stuff at enemies in the first place. Thralls placed on these Zath altars should no longer hover. I feel like I've seen this in the patch notes 2-3 times, something like that. So hopefully they've finally got that fixed and you don't have to see your priest, if you were lucky enough to get one, hovering above the Zath altar. After many expensive sessions of therapy, thralls should no longer have a phobia to the Palace of the Witch Queen and the Silver Mines and can access them like functional beings of the exiled society. This is something that's been plaguing Conan Exiles. It seems like every other patch this comes up where the NPCs just will not go into or come out of those two dungeons once they've gotten in there. And I'm surprised I don't see anything about the underwater dungeon, because I feel like that's another one where thralls seem to have issues pathfinding, so maybe we'll see that fix in the future. This one's interesting. Distant fights between AI should now resolve as intended. So if you are familiar with Conan Exiles, anytime your thrall is a decent distance away from you and fighting something, it doesn't take damage or deal damage. It's like a load error because it's not registering because you're so far away. It sounds like they have fixed that, and the damage should be swapped between those AI characters as intended. We'll see how far away you can get in some testing that I'll do later on. Just one balance update reduced the crafting cost for several throwing axes to make them more cost efficient. That's cool. Quality of life improvements. I'm going to stick on this one for just a little bit here. So you can now pick up building pieces if they are at 100% health. And there's actually a setting if you want to turn this off. If you got your own server and you're running something like Pickup Plus on that server, you're able to turn that off in the server settings. Building pickup enabled, true or false. True would obviously be you can pick them up with the vanilla feature. False would mean that you cannot pick them up. And you could make that decision depending on whether you want people to be able to do that or not, but that option is there. Now, during their live stream, they did say that they added a feature that if you pick something up and it caused another item to lose stability, those other items would go in your inventory. That is not in this patch, so be very careful what you're picking up. Make sure that it is not going to cause other items to lose stability, because if it does, you will lose those other items. General bug fixes. All right, the first one here is fix an issue that caused infinite loading screens when joining PvE conflict servers on PS4. This has been something that's been plaguing PvE conflict servers for quite some time, so I hope they actually have that sorted out and that those people that enjoy playing on the PvEC servers can actually get on them. If you've been having issues with Twitch drops, those should be working on PlayStation and generally working more reliably on all platforms, so go check that out. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know if that's working for you. Addressed an issue that caused white backgrounds on console. I know I covered this in my bugs video for what things have come to console that had issues that you didn't see in PC. So hopefully this is fixed, because it was rather immersion breaking. So hopefully that's gone now. Fixed an issue where it was possible to build too close to the Forges of the First Men on the Isle of Sipta. This is good. I haven't tested how closely you can build to them now, but I know when Isle of Sipta came out and I was kind of running around and checking things out, you were literally able to build basically right on top of them, essentially keeping other players from being able to access that content should that be something that you wanted to do. Feats learned from scrolls and teachers should no longer be removed by using the Yellow Lotus Potion. I know there was a lot of people that were plagued by this. I personally don't use the Yellow Lotus Potion a lot, so it wasn't something that I had to deal with, but I know this plagued a lot of at least the PvP community, possibly the PvE community as well, as they're respecing to learn different feats. You should now be able to interact with the Orb of Nurgle correctly when using a controller. I've already tested this. This is working just fine, which is absolutely awesome. So if you want to recreate your character with a controller, you can do that. All the console people will now be able to recreate their character and change some looks of their character with the Orb of Nurgle. The admin panel should now be working as intended for NPC spawns on consoles. I did test this as well, and this is working. All the NPCs appear to be there. I didn't check everything in the list, but you can spawn the NPCs through the admin panel again on console. Legendary chest contents cannot be previewed anymore. Sorry, peeps. I don't know why they're apologizing for this, because this is something that shouldn't have been changed in the first place, and I would urge Funcoms to not use exploits anymore. And yes, I'm taking a fun stab at them for calling the ability to loot all in the legendary chests an exploit, since it was clearly a bug that they coded into the game. The last thing I'm going to cover from the patch notes happens to be under the UI and text fixes. You should now be able to highlight no building costs option in the admin panel while using a gamepad or a keyboard. This is working. I did test this. This is something that is absolutely working, and I'm very happy about that. There is another bug that's been added back into the game here. So if you have something that's crafting from the sprocket, that means you didn't place it to craft, and you remove something from the bench, whatever's in your crafting is going to go away. So as you can see, if I place this back in here, if I cancel that, and then I put these items back on craft, and I interact with the bench, nothing happens. However, if I take one of these away and I tell it to craft that from the resources that are in the bench, and I remove something arbitrarily like the dragon bone, you can see that it does take that first item that's crafting away. So keep that in mind when you're crafting items, that if it is using this recipe, something that you don't have crafted, then it will remove something from the crafting queue. However, if you have all the items needed to craft those items, you're not using one of these recipes, then you can interact with anything on the bench that isn't part of that recipe, and it will continue to craft. It's only happening when you're using this item right here, when it's auto crafting from the inventory that is in the bench. Another thing that I should mention is they have actually changed the way that things are applied to your radial wheel. So used to be what you had to do was take an item that was in an inventory, go to that spot, and then press X in order for that item to go there. Now all you have to do is simply place an item in that slot, and it's going to make the swap for you without having to press any additional keys. So it's very important that you understand that that's happening when you are changing items. So if you just select it, you may end up putting an item into your Hot Wheel without knowing that you're doing it, because all you have to do is highlight that area and it's going to place that item in your Hot Wheel. Something that I want to cover that's not in the patch notes here, and I don't know whether they'll say this is a bug or an intended fix, but it was not covered in the patch notes and it is changed in the game. So if you play with a controller, you know that when you would sprint, you would initiate that by depressing the left stick, and then you would be able to sprint. Now you could stop sprinting two ways. You could either just stop using the left stick and it would stop your sprint, or you could depress the left stick again and it would stop your sprint. Now, the way that it works is if you stop running, it will not take you out of sprint mode. So you really actually have to depress the left stick again in order to get your character to stop running. So it's almost like a toggle sprint. So if you just stop moving around with your left stick, it's actually not going to take you out of sprint mode. You have to depress it to take yourself out of sprint mode. Now, it's likely that this is the fix for the infinite sprint bug, or at least a partial fix. I've tested it a little bit. I haven't been able to get the infinite stamina to work again, but that doesn't mean that I'm just really terrible at it and some other people are actually able to do it. So we'll see what Funcom does with that. I know there's been a lot of people that have reached out to me about how they do not like the new sprint settings, how it's very awkward for them to have to change and adapt. But if it does stay, it is something that can be learned and it is something that players can adapt to. Now, I want to know in the comment section below, what's your favorite fix out of the update 2.6? Is there something that you were absolutely waiting for and really wanting to get in this patch, and did it come? The whack moments in this video were sponsored by my legendary supporters. If you'd like to become a member, you can click the button below that says join. That'll give you all the details. And if you want to continue the fun, there's 2 videos on the screen. You can pick one of those to watch next. Please don't forget to whack the like button, and if you're new to the channel, I'd encourage you to click that subscribe button, click that bell so you get notified when I upload another video.